Imagine dedicating your entire life to mastering a hyper-competitive sport.
Yeah.
You spend, thousands of hours refining the aerodynamics of your equipment.
Right.
You're mapping out gravitational forces, calculating friction coefficients down to the millimeter, and you reach the absolute pinnacle, the world championship.
Right, the top of the mountain.
Exactly. And you think you're just testing your skills against your peers.
Yeah.
Only to discover, in this totally horrifying twist, that the governing body of your sport has been secretly engineering your opponents in a subterranean lab.
Which is just, wow.
Right, and their goal isn't even to win a trophy. It's to artificially induce enough kinetic energy and existential stress to literally tear a hole in the space-time continuum.
It completely shatters the baseline assumption of athletic competition. I mean, we usually look at sports as a contained ecosystem, right? Like a safe space to test human limits within agreed-upon rules.
Yeah, fair playing.
But the source material we are examining today just rips away that safety net. We are pulling from the translated transcripts of BeyWheelz Part 1 and Part 2, along with this hyper-specific yet crucial detail from the Estrella pronunciation guide.
Yeah, we have to talk about that guide.
We will, definitely, because we're using these to deconstruct a scenario where the physics of a spinning object dictates not just the fate of a city, but the structural integrity of multiple dimensions.
Okay, let's unpack this. For those of you who might be analyzing this competitive landscape for the first time, you need to understand the universe we're in.
It's intense.
It functions like a high-stakes collision between Formula One racing and, underground mixed martial arts. But instead of cars or fighters, this warfare is conducted through BeyWheelz.
And to be clear, since you likely already understand the baseline mechanics of gyroscopic competition...
Like standard tops.
Yeah. We aren't talking about standard flat-spinning tops here. We are looking at heavily modified, vertical, sentient race.
Sentience being the key word there.
Exactly. They have aerodynamic chassis, specialized weight distribution rings, and these elemental energy cores that just completely defy standard terrestrial physics.
DeFi's putting it lightly. And our mission for this deep dive today is to dissect the underlying mechanics of these clashes, right? We want to analyze the often toxic psychology of the competitors.
Yeah, and uncover the mastermind plot.
Yes. The plot that weaponizes organic camaraderie against artificial isolation. Why?
What's fascinating here is that the foundation of this entire interdimensional crisis actually starts with a profound divergence in evolutionary biology. Well, evolutionary mechanics.
Tell me more about that.
So the lore established in these sources points back to a singular cataclysmic event. Years ago, a massive star fell from the sky, shattering into countless fragments across the planet.
Right, which sounds familiar to fans of the broader universe.
Exactly. Anyone familiar with the broader universe knows that those star fragments eventually evolved into modern Beyblade. But the BeyWheelz architecture, it evolved completely independently from that exact same celestial event.
Oh, wow. So they share a cosmic ancestor.
Yeah, but they represent an entirely different evolutionary branch of this latent star fragment energy.
It's like convergent evolution for high-powered weaponry. One branch adapts into horizontal arena-bound combatant, and the other branch evolves into these vertical high-speed projectiles.
Designed for complex, sprawling terrains.
Yeah, exactly. And this isn't just, flavor text. That cosmic origin fundamentally changes the power ceiling of the competitors you'll see in these transcripts.
Because they're tapping into something alien.
Right.
Okay.
Because these machines are housing celestial energy, they aren't bound by the standard laws of thermodynamics.
Which is why a localized collision between two BeyWheelz can crack reinforced concrete.
Or spontaneously generate thermal events. It's crazy. They're tapping into an extraterrestrial power. And honestly, the competitors themselves treat this origin story with intense reverence.
We see that reverence explicitly codified in the Estrella pronunciation guide.
Ah, yes, the guide.
The main protagonist of our deep dive, a wheeler named Sho Tenma, leads the dominant top-tier team in the sport. They call themselves Estrella.
And there's a strict rule about that name, right?
There is. The lore Bible strictly mandates that this must be pronounced Estrella, leveraging the Spanish word for star.
I love that. They're literally naming themselves the descendants of that celestial event.
It's not just a branding exercise.
No, it's an identity marker. They view themselves as the stewards of this cosmic energy. And that identity faces its ultimate crucible immediately in our sources, which drops us directly into the World Championship finals in the city of Dissection.
The semifinals have already concluded at this point.
Right, eliminating a powerhouse competitor named Leon. So we are left with two finalists who also happen to be close friends.
Sho Tenma and Jinryu.
Yeah, Sho Tenma, utilizing the speed-type Bey known as Pegasus, and Jinri, wielding the balance and power-type Bey, Drago.
This matchup is a masterclass in contrasting engineering philosophies. I mean, Pegasus features a highly aerodynamic chassis prioritized for rapid acceleration.
And evasion, right.
Yeah, evasion and exploiting low pressure. Drago, conversely, is built for heavy impact. It utilizes this massive three-bladed design, prioritizing structural stability, mass.
Which makes the format of this championship fast. It's a 3-round format. And I always look at this like an MMA decathlon.
That's a great analogy.
Right. It tests completely different physical attributes in radically different environments. So round 1 is the crash battle.
And the environment heavily dictates the physics of the engagement.
Totally. The track is designed with a severe slope and is only 1/3 the normal width.
Forcing both bays into an immediate, unavoidable collision at the center.
Exactly. And the wing condition is just brute force, knock the opponent completely out of the arena.
The environmental constraints here practically guarantee a win for the heavier machine. Shaw recognizes the severe disadvantage type Pegasus faces in a direct low.
So what does he do?
His tactical adjustment is brilliant, but desperate. He attempts to convert vertical speed into kinetic energy by launching a diving attack.
Oh, trying to use gravity to artificially inflate his bay's mass at the point of impact.
Precise?
But the math just doesn't work out, does it?
No, gravity can only do so much against raw dense. Jin's Drago absorbs the dives.
Because of that 3-bladed design.
Yeah, it uses its superior weight and that massive torque to completely deflect Pegasus, launching Sho's bay out of the arena bound. Jin secures round 1 simply because physics dictates that a high-mass object will displace a low-mass object in a constrained arena.
That makes total sense.
Yeah.
But then the parameters completely flip in round 2, the race battle.
The track is doubled in width.
Right, and it introduces a complex series of zigzag. The wind condition transitions from forced displacement to a pure foot race.
The first bay to cross the opponent's corner secures a throw-out finish.
Yeah, so that wide track completely neutralizes Jin's ability to force that head-on collision. But Jin doesn't just concede the speed advantage, though.
No, he attempts to impose order on a chaotic track by shifting Drago into a blocking pattern.
Like he calculates the trajectory of Pegasus.
Exactly. He physically moves Drago in a zigzag barricade formation, essentially trying to plug the gaps in the wide track before Pegasus can reach top velocity.
That is a phenomenal attempt at spatial control.
It is. However, Char's mastery over Pegasus's aerodynamic capabilities allows him to push the bay to a velocity where it is described in the sources as rendering almost invisible.
Invisible. That's insane.
He slips through the microscopic gaps in Jin's physical barricade and blazes past the finish line, tying the championship 1-1.
This perfectly illustrates how absolute velocity, when given the environmental space to maneuver, can entirely bypass absolute power.
Which brings us to the ultimate decider.
Round 3, the stunt battle. The arena shifts to a massive sloped jump track filled with hazardous obstacles situated in a valley.
This environment requires a hybrid skill set. You need the speed to clear the jumps,
the power to survive mid-air collisions,
and the gyroscopic technique to navigate the hazard. But before they even launch, Jin introduces a massive variable.
Yes. This genuinely frustrates me as an analyst. He proposes a drastic rule change to the governing body.
He dictates that winning by a standard stadium knocking the opponent away is completely off the table.
Right. He limits the win condition exclusively to a spin-out, meaning you must entirely drain the opponent's rotational endurance until they come to a dead stop. And Sho just immediately accepts.
He does.
But I have to call this out as a terrible strategy. I mean, Jin is actively removing his own primary win condition.
He is.
We saw in round 1 that his biggest mechanical advantage is using mass to displace Pegasus. Why on earth would you handicap yourself in the final round of the World Championship?
It seems counterintuitive.
It is. You don't see an elite wrestler walk into a title fight and say, I promise I won't use takedowns today, let's just box. Totally irrational.
From a purely transactional game theory perspective, you are absolutely correct. It is a massive, unnecessary risk. But you are evaluating this through the lens of maximizing win probability. Jin is evaluating this through an existential lens.
Okay, explain that.
He views Sho as his only troop, the only wheeler capable of pushing him to fail. If Jin wins by simply leveraging his weight advantage to bump Sho off the track, he hasn't proven he is the better.
He has only proven his machine is heavier.
Exactly. A spin-out victory requires you to completely shatter your opponent's momentum, their technique, and their spiritual endurance.
So Jin demanded an unquestionable victory.
Yes. He wanted to strip away the environmental loopholes and test the absolute limit of their organic connection to their minds.
Okay, I get it. He prioritizes the purity of the data over the certainty of the outcome. He wants to know definitively who possesses the superior technique.
So they launch under these brutal new constraints.
And the battle is a protracted, exhausting clash. They're trading blows midair, navigating this hazardous valley.
Jin pushes Drago to its limit, unleashing a specialized six-bladed assault called the Dragon Emperor Supreme Flight.
Which is such a cool name. And he physically pins Pegasus against an electrified rope that serves as the arena bound.
It looks like Pegasus is about to lose all rotational momentum. The environmental hazard is actively sapping Pegasus' kinetic energy.
But here we see the literal manifestation of the connection between Wheeler and Bey. Sho refuses to accept the mechanical failure.
He commands Pegasus to adapt.
Right, to absorb the ambient electrical energy from the boundary rope and convert that hostile environmental stress into rotational fuel.
He basically turns the hazard into...
It's brilliant. Sho leverages this absorbed energy to unleash his own countermaneuver, the Pegasus wing snap.
And the concentrated force completely overwhelms Drago's defense.
Drago loses all rotational energy and spins out. Sho Tenma secures the world champion.
So Estrella, consisting of Sho, Jin, and the previously defeated Leon, stands as the undisputed vanguard of the...
They represent the absolute zenith of organic, naturally evolved athletic achievement.
But peak natural excellence is like a magnet for corporate exploitation.
Oh, isn't it always?
The second Estrella publicly proves the absolute power of their organic growth methodology. A militant syndicate steps out of the shadows to monopolize.
Yeah, we transition immediately from the celebration of a pure sporting event to the hostile takeover of the entire infrastructure, the Dominators.
They flood the streets of dissection, and their methodology is horrifying.
They aren't issuing formal challenge.
No, they are executing precision strikes against civilian wheelers, systematically destroying their base. They operate with terrifying military precision, establishing a monopoly on violence to enforce a new world order.
And then they march directly into the headquarters of Dream, the official governing organization of BeyWheelz.
Confronting the chairman, former genius wheeler named Ryan Gladstone, their demand is total bureaucratic and operational control over...
And Ryan naturally refuses to surrender the infrastructure.
But the Dominators anticipate. They immediately execute a containment strategy for...
Right. They lure the newly crowned champions, Sho and Jin, into an abandoned, highly unstable sector of the city. They set up a 2-on-2 battle, bringing out two of their commanders, Odin and Glenn.
But they fundamentally alter the psychological parameters of the match.
How so?
They physically block off all safe zones in the arena and stipulate that any Bey knocked off the cliff edge will fall into a chasm permanent.
That's brutal. They aren't threatening a loss on a scoreboard. They are threatening the destruction of the Wheelers' most prized possession.
It's a calculated escalation of risk. During the match, the sheer kinetic output of the four Beys colliding actually compromises the structural integrity of the stone stadium.
The ground collapse.
Yes, Jin's Bey Drago is launched toward the abyss. Sho observes this impending destruction and makes a split-second instinct.
He physically reaches out his hand and grabs Drago midair to prevent it from falling,
which instantly triggers a non-negotiable disqualification.
Yeah, in the established rulebook of this universe, a wheeler cannot physically touch a Bey during active combat. It is the cardinal sin of the sport.
And you have to realize, the Dominators mathematically calculated this outcome.
Wait, really? They planned the collapse?
Yes. They didn't defeat Sho and Jin through superior gyroscopic technique or tactical maneuvering. They engineered a structural collapse.
Knowing that Sho's empathy and organic loyalty to his teammate would override his adherence to the rules.
Exactly. They weaponized his humanity against him.
Wow. It is a deeply cynical yet highly effective exploitation of organic bond. So with Sho disqualified, the Dominators claim a technical victory.
And they utilize this leverage to back Chairman Ryan Gladstone into a corner, forcing him to accept a wager for the soul of the sport.
A 5-match tournament dubbed Judgment Bet. If the Dominators secure 3 victories, they assume total ownership of Dream.
But if Estrella wins, the syndicate.
So Estrella is forced to accept. But they immediately hit a massive logistical bottleneck. It's a 5-match tournament, and their roster only consists of 3 elite wheelers, Sho, Jin, and Leon.
They desperately need to recruit top-tier talent, and they need it instantly.
Which forces them out of their comfort zone in dissection and into the sprawling, neon-soaked metropolis of Das Vegas.
The juxtaposition between dissection and Das Vegas is stark. Dissection prizes the honorable, highly technical, one-on-one duel.
While Das Vegas is an engine of pure spectacle.
Exactly. Their primary competitive format is the Grand Prix BeyWheelz, an endurance-based, multi-competitor race operating on massive, sprawling tracks.
It requires a completely alien skill set. I mean, you aren't just managing the stamina of your own machine.
Right. You are constantly calculating acceleration curves, defending against side impacts from dozens of competitors, and navigating tight corners in a congested pack.
And the undisputed apex predators of this circuit are a duo, right? Nicole piloting the Spike Crash Striker and Marche commanding the Tele Ares Bey.
Yeah. Sho and Jin enter this arena to recruit.
And here's where it gets really interesting. The moment Sho and Jin step up to challenge Nicole and Marche to a 2-on-2 race, the Las Vegas crowd absolutely turns on them. They boo them out of the building.
It perfectly encapsulates the tribal psychology of sports fandom.
Totally.
In dissection, Sho and Jin are deified as world champion. But the moment they cross city lines, that title becomes a target.
To the Las Vegas crowd, they are arrogant interlopers attempting to humiliate the local heroes on their home turf.
The crowd isn't loyal to the concept of objective excellence. They are loyal to their geography.
Yeah. This forces Sho and Jin to operate under severe psychological duress, managing a hostile arena while attempting to decipher a foreign competitive format.
It's true away game psychology.
Real athletes talk about this all the time, how crowd noise disrupts communication, spikes cortisol, and forces unforced errors.
So the race begins. First to complete 20 laps wins, and Nicole and Marche immediately demonstrate why they rule this track.
They execute a highly sophisticated aerodynamic maneuver.
Marche positions Tella at the absolute front of the pack, pushing it to maximum velocity, while Nicole slots her striker bay mere millimeters behind.
They initiate a perfect slipstream.
The mechanical execution of this maneuver is breathtaking.
Right, because in any high-velocity environment, aerodynamic drag, the physical resistance of the air, is the primary antagonist to forward momentum.
The lead machine, Tella, is doing the grueling work of piercing that air density, creating a turbulent wake that leaves a localized pocket of low pressure directly behind.
So Nicole is essentially piloting her bay into a vacuum.
Precisely. By nesting striker within that low-pressure pocket, Nicole drastically reduces the drag coefficient acting on her machine.
Striker requires a fraction of the rotational energy to maintain the exact same speed as Tella.
She is hoarding kinetic energy while the rest of the field is burning it just to keep up.
And when they reach the final stretch,
Nicole violently breaks Striker out of the slipstream. That massive reserve of hoarded energy triggers an explosive surge in acceleration, allowing her to slingshot past the competition with devastating force.
It's identical to the tactics utilized in professional cycling or high-speed motorsport. And it requires a terrifying level of trust.
Oh, absolutely.
Because if Marche makes a micro miscalculation in his steering, Nicole's bay crashes into him at top speed, destroying them both.
The slipstream only functions if the synergy between the two wheelers is absolute. They deploy the slingshot against Sho and Jin, inflicting massive structure.
And this is the moment where organic adaptability must override specialized perfection.
Yes. Sho and Jin realize that attempting to out-accelerate a perfectly executed slipstream in a linear foot race is a mathematical.
They cannot beat the physics of the draft. So what do? They decide to destroy the environment that allows the draft to exist.
They unleash their specialized maneuvers not to attack Nicole and Marche direct, but to generate chaotic, intersecting wind currents and physical debris across the track.
They intentionally disrupt the aerodynamic baseline of the arena. By shredding the clean air, they collapse the low-pressure pocket Marche was creating,
rendering the slipstream completely useless.
Yes, Sho and Jin navigate their own engineered chaos to secure a narrow victory right at the finish.
It is a stunning display of lateral problem. They didn't overpower the local champion. They decoded a highly specialized regional tactic and engineered an environmental countermeasure in real time.
And this intellectual flexibility is precisely what convinces Nicole and Marche to join Team Estrella.
They recognize that these champions aren't just relying on the brute force of their celestial origins. They possess supreme tactical intelligence.
Exactly. So with their roster solidified at 5 members, Estrella returns to Destac to face the Judgment Bay tournament. Stakes are
5-match. First team to 3 victories claims total control of.
The announcer proudly declares that to ensure absolute fairness, the arenas for each match will be selected entirely at random by a computer algorithm.
But we quickly discover that this broadcasted impartiality is a facade.
Of course.
The concept of randomness is a carefully constructed illusion. The Dominators have compromised the mainframe.
They are manually intervening, utilizing a hidden interface to handpick specific arenas.
They are executing a strategy of environmental neutralization, deliberately selecting terrains that exploit the specific mechanical vulnerabilities of whichever Estrella wheeler is scheduled.
It is psychological warfare masked as bad luck. So let's examine match 1.
Okay.
Estrella sends in their newest heavyweight recruit, Cove, who utilizes a massive power-type bay called Horned Bull.
And the Dominators sent out Sting, fielding a light-speed type bay named Scorpion.
Then the quote-unquote randomizer selects the Desert Cactus Arena, a track composed entirely of deep, shifting, uncompacted sand.
The physics of this matchup are instantly catastrophic for Covey.
Why is that?
Horned Bull's entire design philosophy revolves around high mass and friction. It needs a solid surface to grip, so it can transfer its rotational energy, forward momentum, and attack power.
And deep sand is the mortal enemy of mass.
Exactly. The moment Horned Bull lands, it begins to sink. The granular displacement of the sand acts as a damp, absorbing the bay's kinetic energy and bleeding its speed, alarming.
It's the physics of surface area versus mass. It's why you wear a snowshoe to walk across a drift, but a stiletto heel punches right through to the ice.
That's a perfect way to picture it.
Covey's bay is a high-mass stiletto. It sinks, while Sting's ultralight Scorpio acts like the snowshoe.
Scorpio possesses such low mass that it doesn't break the surface tension of the sand. It literally glides top.
So Sting just circles Covey, effortlessly delivering glancing blows while Covey is hopelessly bogged down. And Sting behaves with absolute arrogance, entirely convinced the rigged arena has already secured his victory.
But Sting makes a fatal miscalculation. He assumes Covey's intelligence is as heavy and slow as his machine.
Right. Covey assesses the granular physics of his trap and realizes that attempting to outmaneuver a speed type on this surface is futile.
Instead, he decides to alter the molecular state of the arena itself.
Okay, this part is awesome. Covey initiates a technique called the bull roar. Rather than aiming his attacks at Scorpio, he directs Horned Bull to aggressively strike the reinforced metal walls and the metallic cactus hazards bordering the track.
He weaponizes the environment against itself.
Every impact sends massive, concussive sonic waves rippling through the arena,
which triggers a highly specific geological phenomenon known as soil liquefaction.
Break that down for us.
Sure. When a loose granular material like uncompacted sand is subjected to intense, sustained vibratory stress, the friction between the individual grains collapses.
So it stops acting like a solid.
Exactly. The material loses its structural stiffness and begins to behave exactly like a highly... Covey literally vibrates the solid track.
And instantly, the math reverses. Scorpio's ultralight mass is no longer an advantage. It's a death sentence. It can't glide on a liquid.
The fluidized sand swallows the fast bay, completely arresting its momentum.
With Scorpio paralyzed in the trap, Covey delivers a devastating final impact to secure a 1-0 lead for Estrella. It's a breathtaking victory of geological engineering over a rigged system.
But the Dominators do not retreat. They escalate their ruthless.
Yeah, match 2 is a 2-on-2 engagement on a massive circular track. Estrella deploys their Las Vegas recruit, Nicole and Marche, relying on their flawless slipstream synergy.
And the Dominators field two brothers, David, utilizing a speed configuration, and Gigante, wielding a massive power type called Hercules.
Gigante's designated role is to act as a mobile barricade, absorbing impacts and running interference, while his older brother David attempts to complete the required 20 laps.
But once again, the arena itself is a weapon. Gigante's Hercules Bay features a highly specialized heat. As the internal gyroscopes spin, they generate staggering amounts of friction, radiating intense thermal energy.
In a standard arena, this just creates a localized heat hazard.
But the Dominators selected a track rigged with extensive water features.
Oh.
When the superheated surface of Hercules makes contact with the water, it triggers instant explosive vaporization. The entire track is immediately blanketed in a dense, impenetrable fog.
So they weaponize thermal dynamics to alter the atmospheric conditions of the arena. This is a direct, calculated attack on Nicole and Marche's primary win condition.
Because the slipstream tactic requires microscopic precision and flawless timing.
You cannot safely nest your machine millimeters behind your partner if you have zero visibility. The fog blinds them, neutralizing their synergistic advantage.
It's brilliant evil engineering. Nicole and Marche are forced to adapt.
Right. They use the rotational wind generated by their own bays to carve temporary tunnels of visibility through the fog, painstakingly closing the distance on David.
They actually managed to catch him right before the finish line. It looks like they might pull off another upset.
But then we witness the absolute darkest application of the Dominator's philosophy.
Yeah, this part is rough.
David sees his lead evaporate. He needs a burst of acceleration to cross the line. His younger brother, Gigante, is positioned nearby, still trying to run interference.
Instead of coordinating a block with his brother, David violently rams his own bay into Gigante's Hercules.
He uses his own flesh and blood as a physical stepping stone.
He transfers his brother's kinetic energy to his own machine to violently propel him across.
It is a staggering display of betrayal, and it perfectly distills the philosophical chasm between these two factions. I mean, look at Estrella. When Nicole and Marche compete, they utilize the slipstream.
They literally use their collective energy to pull each other forward, elevating the unit above. Their speed is a product of absolute mutual.
Now think about the most toxic corporate environment you've ever worked in. You listening right now, imagine that. The Dominators are the ultimate embodiment of that nightmare.
They operate on a philosophy of cannibalism.
David literally crushes his own brother to hit his KPI. They view their teammates not as collaborators, but as expendable resources to be consumed the moment they offer a statistical advantage.
That betrayal wins them the match, tying the series 1-1. But it exposes a terminal rot at the core of their entire organization.
And that psychological rot bleeds right into match 3. Estrella feels Leon, a wheeler defined by his passionate, almost feral power, piloting the Lion Bay.
The Dominators counter with Jake, commanding the balance-type serpent.
And the rigged environment this time. A track composed entirely of solid, frictionless ice.
The mechanical disadvantage here is immediate and glaring. Leon's Lion Bay relies on generating massive traction to transfer its torque into attack power.
On the ice, the friction coefficient drops to near 0.
Lion is helplessly sliding, unable to generate any offensive output. Meanwhile, Jake's Serpent features a specialized, scaled rubber core specifically engineered to grip the ice.
So Jake has absolute maneuverability and proceeds to humiliate Leon, skating circles around him and landing precise, agonizing strikes. Now, I have to ask you to explain this to me because Leon's reaction infuriates me.
Okay, lay it out.
Why doesn't he just stop? Why doesn't he retreat to the center of the arena, minimize his movements to conserve energy, and wait for Jake to make a directional error? Why does he just blindly attack and get angrier?
You are diagnosing the fatal flaw in Leon's psychological makeup.
Okay.
Leon's greatest asset is his overwhelming, passionate drive, but his crippling vulnerability is his massive ego. When Jake uses his environmental advantage to mock Leon to make him look foolish and out of control, Leon experiences an amygdala hijack.
His logical processing completely shuts down.
Exactly. He isn't analyzing the physics of the ice. He is reacting to the insult to his pride. He allows his emotional state to completely override his tactics.
He lets his ego pilot the machine. Exactly why elite athletes choke in high-pressure moments. They stop trusting their training and start fighting their own anxiety.
Exactly. Driven by pure rage, Leon attempts a massive, reckless airborne assault, trying to crush Serpent from above to bypass the ice higher.
But because the attack is fueled by unregulated emotion rather than calculated precision, he wildly miscalculates the trajectory.
He completely misses Jake, crashes into the arena floor with devastating force, and shatters the thick ice.
And his bay becomes hopelessly wedged in a deep fissure of his own make. He didn't lose to Jake's skill. He lost to his own lack of emotional regulation.
It's a painful, humiliating loss. The Dominators take a 2-1 lead, pushing Estrella to the absolute brink of elimination.
They face match point. They deploy Jin, the stoic tactician, wielding Drago. The Dominators send out Glenn, armed with a thermal-based bay called Firebrand.
And the arena is a nightmare.
Yeah, the Fire Geyser track, featuring massive randomized pillars of flame erupting from the floor.
The elemental cruelty here is palpable. Jin's Drago is heavily associated with water and ice attributes. Throwing him into an arena composed entirely of extreme heat is a targeted effort to rapidly overheat his bay's core and induce mechanical failure.
But Jin represents the antithesis of Leon's emotional fragility. Remember, this is the wheeler who voluntarily handicapped himself in the World Championship just to preserve the integrity of the data.
He is a master of discipline.
He doesn't panic when the flames erupt. He begins aggressively dodging Glenn's attacks, but he is simultaneously running complex calculations.
He is mapping the intervals between the eruptions.
He realizes the quote-unquote random geysers operate on a complex, hidden algorithm, and he memorizes the pattern. He starts weaving through the inferno with terrifying mathematical precision.
He imposes his own internal cognitive order onto the external engineered chaos of the arena. He transforms an unpredictable hazard into a mapped variable.
And the Dominators monitoring the control room absolutely panic. They realize their algorithm has been compromised by Jin's sheer processing power.
So they abandon the facade of the rigged game entirely.
Right. They bypass the algorithm and initiate a manual override, directly triggering the geysers out of sequence, actively trying to incinerate Jin's bay mid-match.
It is the moment the mask fully slips. They are no longer relying on environmental bias. They are committing active, mid-match sabotage.
But Jin refuses to yield to the corruption. He pushes through the manually targeted flames, relying not just on calculation, but on raw, unadulterated willpower.
He absorbs the thermal stress, unleashes the Dragon Emperor's supreme flight, and violently ejects Glenn's Firebrand from...
Jin ties the tournament 2-2, dragging both factions into a massive winner-takes-all finale.
But the defining revelation of this final match doesn't stem from the arena they fight in.
Oh no. It comes from the psychological anomaly of the man they are fighting against. We arrive at match 5, the absolute climax. It's Sho Tenma against Odin, the undisputed ace of the Dominators.
And Odin immediately shatters all expectations.
Right, he openly rejects the Dominators' control room. He refuses a rigged elemental arena.
He demands a standard, neutral stadium enclosed in an electrified cage to prevent stadium. He demands a completely fair, uncompromised duel.
This demand exposes the deep psychological complexity of Odin. He is an anomaly within his own syndicate.
He harbors no interest in acquiring the bureaucratic control of Dream. He doesn't care about the Dominators' political objectives.
So what's his...
Odin is suffering from the curse of the prodigy. He possesses such overwhelming innate talent that he rapidly ascended past every challenger, eventually finding himself completely alone at the summit.
Wow. He is afflicted by the profound, crushing boredom of absolute supremacy.
He is what we call an empty champion. He demanded a fair fight, not out of nobility, but out of a desperate, starving need to feel something, anything, even if that feeling was the terror of impending defeat.
He demands the cage because he wants to be trapped with his own mortality, and Sho gives him exactly what he is starving.
The ensuing battle is a staggering, high-velocity exchange of kinetic.
The source transcripts describe sparks flooding the arena, the reinforced concrete cracking under the sheer force of their collision.
Both wheelers are pushing their hardware and their nervous systems to the absolute edge of catastrophic.
And in the dead center of this terrifying chaos, Odin, who has maintained a dead-eyed, emotionless facade for the entire series, suddenly begins to smile.
He finally experiences the rush of a genuine threat.
Sho is providing him with the one resource his talent denied him appear. Sho forces Odin to actively engage his survival instincts.
Exactly.
So what does this all mean? When Sho ultimately pushes past his own limits, unleashes a maximized Pegasus wing smash, shatters the electrified cage, and defeats Odin, securing a tournament 3-2 for Estrella, Odin exhibits no anger.
No, he doesn't despair.
He looks profoundly relieved. Why does the destruction of his undefeated record bring him peace?
Because a loss validates his existence as a... When you win effortlessly, you exist in a vacuum. You have no external friction to reflect your own effort back.
By defeating him, Sho shattered that vacuum.
Sho provided connection through combat. Odin finally understands that the intrinsic value of the sport doesn't lie in the dom. It lies in the struggle, beautiful push and pull of energy.
It is a stunning moment of athletic respect. Estrella has successfully defended the integrity of Dream. The crowd is euphoric. The Dominators have been mathematically defeated.
And precisely at this moment of absolute triumph, the entire narrative architecture of the universe collapses in on itself.
The architect of this misery finally steps.
Ryan,
The chairman of the very man Estrella just risked their lives to protect. He steps forward, applauding the carnage, and he casually drops a revelation that completely recontextualizes every event we've discussed.
he is the creator of the Dominators.
He funded their syndicate, he engineered their bays, he trained them in a classified subterranean facility directly beneath the Dream Head.
And those heavily armored Dream Guards that were supposedly securing the tournament.
Yeah, they strip off their insignias, revealing themselves as the commanding officers of the Dom.
It is a betrayal of staggering purport, but the motivation behind the betrayal is what makes it truly chilling.
Ryan calmly explained that this entire conflict, the terrorizing of the civilian wheelers, the hostile takeover, the Judgment Bay tournament, was never about political control.
It was a massive, highly orchestrated, deeply cruel sociological.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, Ryan was playing God with human stress responses.
Exactly. Let's analyze the parameters of his experiment. On one side of his ledger, he engineered the Dominators.
Right.
These were subjects he handpicked and subjected to a highly controlled, high-stress, artificial environment. They were literally lab-grown combatants, conditioned through trauma to believe that survival required the consumption of the weak.
They were optimized for ruthlessness.
And on the other side of the ledger, he placed Team
Estrella represented the control group Organic Naturally Evolves Wheeler. They forged their skills in the chaotic environment of the street, learning through failure, building community, and developing empathy.
Ryan intentionally engineered a collision between these two fundamentally opposed methodologies to answer a single, terrifying hypothesis.
Which system artificial trauma or organic synergy produces a higher output of absolute, undeniable power?
And he knew he couldn't extract accurate data from a friendly exhibition map. People hold back when they feel safe.
He had to convince both factions that their entire existence, their freedom, and their identities were on the line.
He needed them fighting with the desperate, clawing energy of existential dread to guarantee they would push their celestial energy cores past their theoretical limits.
He weaponized their passions to generate a massive data spike.
But this begs a massive question. Why? What was the purpose of generating this unprecedented energy spike? Ryan already controlled the sport. What was he trying to power?
The answer loops us all the way back to the cosmic divergence we discussed in the beginning, the star fragments.
Right, the lower returns.
Ryan reveals a tragic tragedy that warped his psychology. Before he was a manipulative bureaucrat, he was a genius wheeler, a prodigy cut from the exact same cloth as Odin.
He was destined to be the greatest champion in history.
But right at the apex of his ascent, as he was attempting a maneuver that would unlock unprecedented celestial power, he suffered a catastrophic, permanent injury to his arm.
His physiological ability to compete was instantly and permanently severed. His entire identity was inextricably linked to his physical dominance.
When that was stripped away, he didn't just retire, he collapsed into a black hole of consuming despair.
But his genius didn't evaporate. It metastasized. He redirected his obsessive intellect away from the arena and toward the cosmic.
He dedicated his life to researching the star fragments that catalyzed the creation of BeyWheelz, and he made a staggering, terrifying logical leap.
He deduced that if a localized cluster of these celestial fragments impacted Earth and fundamentally altered our technological evolution, statistical probability dictates that other fragments must have impacted other celestial bodies.
There must exist other planets, entirely different dimensions, possessing alternate, unknown evolutionary branches of this Bey technology.
And he didn't just formulate a hypothesis, he unearthed the physical evidence. His expeditions uncovered a massive, ancient monument, a monolithic relic left behind by the initial celestial.
He discovered that this monument was not a statue, but a dormant, interdimensional energy amplifier.
His endgame is pure, unadulterated sci-fi megalomania. He calculated the trajectory of an impending, immensely rare planet.
He knew that during this alignment, the ambient cosmic energies would spike.
His plan was to harness the staggering kinetic and emotional energy generated by the final clash,
The raw power created by Sho and Odin pushing each other to the brink of death.
and channel that energy directly into the ancient monument. The amplifier would use that charge to literally tear open a stabilized portal to another dimension. He wanted access to a new universe of unknown Bey.
But we must be very clear about his intent. This was not an endeavor of scientific curiosity or exploration.
No, his injury had mutated his despair into a need for absolute dominance.
Because his physical body failed him in this world, he decided he would utilize this gateway to become the conqueror of a new world.
He intended to subjugate an entirely new dimension of life form to fill the psychological void left by his shattered arm.
It is the ultimate manifestation of toxic ambition, and in a moment of stunning arrogance, he actually extends an invitation to Estrella.
She looks at Sho, Jin, and Leon and effectively says, "Your data proves you are the strongest variable. Step through this portal with me and I will appoint you as my vanguard generals in the conquest of this new universe."
It reveals a total fundamental misunderstanding of everything Estrella represents.
Completely. It's the equivalent of a team of brilliant scientists discovering a complex, beautiful, intelligent alien civilization, and the lead scientist immediately drafting plans to launch a nuclear first strike instead of attempting communication.
Ryan looks at a new world and only sees a target for subjugation. Estrella looks at a new world and sees an opportunity for expansion, but specifically the expansion of a community.
They categorically reject his offer. They want to broaden their circle of peers. Ryan is desperate for
This stark philosophical divide is so powerful it actually shatters the conditioning of the Dominator. Gigante, the massive wheeler who was literally used as a stepping stone by his own brother in match 2, finally breaks his programming.
He processes the sheer sociopathic toxicity of Ryan's engineer.
In a deeply resonant moment of defiance, Gigante officially defects. He abandons the Dominators and formally aligns his strength with Team Estrella.
The battle lines are finally clearly drawn, setting the stage for the ultimate confront. Estrella is forced to violently push their way through a phalanx of heavily armed Dream Guard just to reach the rooftop act.
The conflict narrows to a singular focal point. Sho Tenma, facing down the architect of his misery, Ryan Glatz.
Ryan isn't standing on the sidelines anymore. He is wielding a dark, immensely powerful, heavily modified Bey known as Kerbek.
This final battle is the physical manifestation of the entire thematic argument of the sword.
Ryan is piloting Kerbeks using an energy signature born entirely of isolated genius, deep-seated bitterness, and an obsessive, suffocating need for control.
While Sho is piloting Pegasus, fueled by the desperate desire to protect his community and preserve the organic integrity of the sport he loves.
Ryan, utilizing the data he gathered from the tournament, unleashes his ultimate, mathematically perfected maneuver, Kerbek's Hound of Darkness.
It is described as a massive, sweeping wave of destructive kinetic energy meant to obliterate anything in its path. And Sho makes a decision that defies all tactical logic.
He doesn't attempt to evade.
He doesn't counterattack. He commands Pegasus to hold its ground and absorb the strike head-on. He takes the full, unmitigated brunt of Ryan's accumulated hatred and engineered power.
And incredibly survive.
We most deeply analyze why Sho survives what should be a catastrophic lethal impact. It isn't merely a trope of the protagonist surviving against the odds.
It is the definitive mathematical conclusion to the experiment Ryan himself designed.
Ryan operates in absolute isolation. He severed himself from empathy, viewing every other human being merely as a tool or a data point.
Sho operates with the literal, physical backing of his collective. As he absorbs the impact, the sources explicitly show his teammate Gigante, Leon, Jin, Nicole, Marche, pouring their emotional support, their spirit, their collective will.
It is the ultimate proof that the slipstream is mathematically superior to the sacrifice. Synergy, connection, and mutual support generate a structural resilience that isolated engineered perfection simply cannot replicate.
Sho absorbs Ryan's absolute best shot, stabilizes his gyroscopic core, and then violently redirects that energy back, unleashing a devastating counterstrike that completely shatters Kerbeck's.
Ryan Gladstone is definitively defeated.
However, the violent friction of their concluding clash produced the exact energetic yield Ryan calculated.
Oh, right, the gate.
The sheer magnitude of the force generated by Pegasus and Kerbeck's, amplified by the ancient monument during the planetary alignment, achieves critical mass.
The sky literally fractures. The interdimensional gateway materializes and tears open.
But the context of that opening has been radically rewritten. Ryan is not the one stepping through the threshold as a conquering tyrant. He is broken.
Instead, Sho and his friend stand before the cosmic abyss. They stare into the terrifying, infinite unknown.
But they don't look at it with the desire to subjugate, and they don't look at it with fear.
They look at it with pure, unadulterated excitement. They are ready to step through the portal, discover new competitors, engage in spectacular battles, and forge new alliances.
They approach the infinite unknown, possessing the insatiable curiosity of triathlete, entirely rejecting the paralyzing greed of tyrant. They successfully subvert and redeem Ryan's darkest.
It is an absolutely staggering narrative arc. We initiated this deep dive discussing the mechanics of a localized sports tournament in Destruction City, analyzing the physics of mass versus speed.
And we evolved into deconstructing a psychological war against a militarized rig, culminating in the prevention of a cosmic interdimensional conquest.
The sources guide us seamlessly from the micromechanics of gyroscopic friction on an ice track to the macro philosophy of human organizational behavior.
And the core, undeniable takeaway is clear. Organic growth, empathy, and collaborative synergy will always eventually outlast and overpower engineered isolation and institutional cruelty.
The system designed to elevate people will always structurally defeat the system designed to consume.
And that brings us directly to you, listening to this deep dive right.
Analyze your own environment. Look at your career trajectory, your creative collaborations, your hobby, or the dynamics of your personal relationships. Are you operating like Team Estrella?
Are you actively cultivating an environment that generates a slipstream, intentionally reducing the drag for the people around you so that you can all accelerate further and faster together?
Or have you adopted the methodology of the Dominator, viewing your peers and your partners merely as stepping stones, expendable resources to be sacrificed the moment they offer you a personal statistical advantage?
It forces a reevaluation of how you define it. Is your success fundamentally collaborative, achieved in tandem with others, or is it extractive, achieved entirely?
Which leaves us with one final, deeply provocative thought to carry with. Consider the tragedy of Ryan Glad. His relentless obsession with discovering the next frontier literally hollowed out his soul.
He successfully achieved his impossible dream of tearing open the cosmic gate, but the methodology he used to get there left him too broken, too toxic, and too isolated to actually step.
So ask yourself, when you finally reach the absolute pinnacle of your own career, your creative pursuit, or your life, what is your next move?
Do you look for a new world to connect with, study, to collaborate with?
Or do you instinctively look for a new world to conquer? Is the relentless burning drive for constant expansion and dominance truly a marker of greatness? Or is it, just like Ryan, merely a symptom of a profound, unfillable inner empty?
When the flawless precision of the engineered machine inevitably fails, what quality of spirit is left standing in the wreck?
Just something to rigorously evaluate the next time you find yourself. Until our next